Welcome to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Agemy, powered by the Retirement Income Store and brought to you by Agemy Financial Strategies in Guilford, Connecticut and Denver, Colorado.
So he was just huffing and puffing and climbing. And I looked over and I said, "Hey man, are you okay?" And he said, "Oh, I didn't even see you there." I said, "Don't worry. You did the hard part. The first 2 miles is just straight up. You got 8 miles to go. It's rolly, it's fun, it's downhill. You got a little bit of ups, but they're little. You're going down the rest of the way." He said, "Oh, thank God." Next guy just goes right past him, just charging like a maniac, all the power in the world, shoots down the road. So I take a break, I turn around, I start riding, and I blow past the second guy. He's climbing up a tiny little hill, huffing, puffing, looking defeated.
Mindset. That guy, he just didn't know what he didn't know. But the first guy, he listened to a guy that went before him and got counsel and was able to adjust his plan, adjust his mindset accordingly. Fantastic. I'm Andrew Agemy.
And I'm Daniel Agemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 5 mistakes retirees make.
Yeah, and these mistakes can be disastrous to retirees' retirement. And, the greatest fear that retirees have is running out of money during their lifetime. And these things can keep these mistakes can make somebody run out of money if they're not careful. And that's what our story with the bicyclists, the mountain bikers, was all about, was the aspect of you can learn from other people's mistakes. You can learn what you don't know, or you can just not care and just go on doing what you want to do and being defeated because of that. That's a good story, Daniel.
Well, it's all about mindset, right? The difference in the two guys is one knew what was coming ahead, so he adjusted his mind.
Yeah.
When he hit a hill, he didn't say, "Oh no, this is gonna be another 2 miles of straight up." He said, "Oh, I got 8 miles of downhill. I'm gonna blow up this thing. I'm gonna ride down." The other guy, every time he hit the hill, he'd think, "Oh, again, I can't climb this. I'm dead." It's like the train that said, "I think I can," right? Except one guy had a secret that he knew it was 8 miles of downhill. You think it's going to be halfway, right?
Right.
5 miles up, 5 miles down, but it wasn't. It was 2 miles up, 8 miles down. And so retirees have the same mindset shift that they need to make.
Right. Right. As people getting closer to retirement, it's kind of like retirement is a mountain that people are going up their whole life, and they get up to the top of the mountain and it's scary. And there's a lot of changing that is taking place. Their schedules are changing. Their paycheck is changing. Their friends are changing. A lot of things are changing. And as they begin, and especially as they hit that plateau of retirement, they things need to change and a switching needs to go on. And the number one mistake that retirees make is not switching their mindset from a saving mindset to a retirement mindset. Those are two different mindsets, right, Daniel? The savings mindset is what they're doing their whole life, 30, 40 years. They're saving, they're putting money in their 401ks and IRAs. They're saving for retirement. But when it comes time for retirement, so many times people don't change their mindset.
Yeah, exactly. When you don't let go of that saving mentality, you worry about running out of money. Why? Because for 40 years or for 2 miles up the hill, you've been pushing it out, saving, trying to get to this point. And so you switch gears, right? You switch gears from the climbing gear into the downhill gear where you get to jump stuff and have fun and go on trips and do all these things. And that's the same when you switch from that saving, that accumulation, saving, putting money away, hoping that markets will go up, to putting the money, making it work for you, making it pay you to do the things you want to do in your retirement. That's the mindset shift.
Well, Daniel, I know that a lot of people out there are probably thinking, yeah, but I'm a frugal person. I want to be careful. I'm going to be careful with what I do, and I come across a lot of people like that who are not spenders. They are more savers of a mentality, which is that concept is fine, but when it comes to how you're investing your money, that's a different thing. Earlier, Daniel, when we were preparing, you were talking about saving and savings today, when what people view as savings today versus 20 or 30 years ago. That's two different things, generally speaking, right?
Yeah, exactly. Savings today is you put money in the S&P 500, right?
Mm-hmm.
You put money in the bank, you're accepting you're going to lose money.
Right.
Anybody saving money in the bank says, I understand I'm going to be losing 2 to 3% of my purchasing power a year, but I want that because I don't like volatility.
Mm-hmm.
And the way people use the S&P 500 today is they're just putting their money into that, and over 40 years, they're assuming they're going to make 8% return. And if the Federal Reserve keeps just printing money and building up markets, they probably will, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The difficulty comes if you're not in the accumulation stage of life, if you're not in the saving stage of life. When you have periods like from 2007 to 2013, where markets were down and flat, you cannibalize your savings compared to the model of letting your money pay you, letting your money be your slave, letting your money work for you
Right.
and pay you to do the things you want to do. You already worked for it. Let it work for you now.
Right, exactly. And when you're talking about that, Daniel, you talk about cannibalizing your money. That reminds me of of a paper that we have written that goes right along with that, and the dangers of spending down principal during retirement. And that's one of the aspects. That's one of the things why people run out of money, is because they spend down their principal, and then they run out of money. But that's what we're talking about today, is that they need to switch your mindset and not do that. But so, if you're listening to us today, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemy, because people don't know what people don't know. So we want to educate you. And we have this piece that we'd like to give you today: the dangers of spending down principal during retirement. You can have that by calling 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. Daniel, as we talk about that, you mentioned that savings today, a lot of people just think of the mindset of putting money into the S&P 500 and letting it grow and go. And I'm reminded of a guy in the 90s that came into my office, and I did a free financial physical, or a second opinion, on him with his retirement. Now, this is a guy that was probably in his early 40s at the time, and had his emergency money was in a mutual fund, about $12,000 or $15,000, if I can recall properly. And I said to him, well, that's not a good thing to do. Now, remember, back in the early to mid 90s, you were able to get, at least in a CD, you were able to get 4 or 5, maybe 6% on a CD at that point in time. And this guy had it in the marketing. He was making, 12%. And he was really thrilled about that. And I said, well, you have to be careful about that, because, there's volatility in the market and things could happen. He said, what could happen? And then, of course, we saw in 2000, the market came down 50%. And I don't know, he did not become a client of mine. He didn't like my philosophy. So, I don't know what kind of shape he's in, but that's the kind of thinking that people have today. And they keep that going in retirement, which is not the proper thing to do. That's a huge mistake, to keep that same mentality of putting money away, putting it into the stock market, putting it in S&P 500. And because while you're putting money away during your working years, that works okay. Because like Daniel mentioned, you mentioned the dollar cost averaging. You're buying some shares low, some shares high. It comes when the market comes back to where it was during volatile times, you're better off than where you were from that standpoint. But once you stop putting the money in from your paycheck, that becomes the problem.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think about like that story you're talking about, and the Nasdaq cut in half by something like 90%. So if you were in the accumulation, if you were in the saving phase of life, well, awesome. I mean, it wouldn't feel good to watch your money cut in half by 90%. You have 100 grand and now you have 10.
Right.
But if you're working and you don't need that money, well, that's a fantastic buying opportunity. But if you're in retirement and you're trying to go to Europe next week and now you've got $10,000, your retirement just became extremely stressful.
That's right.
And we don't have to say that the NASDAQ is going to cut in half, go to 90%. If your money went down 30%, if it went down 40%, if it went down any of these
10%. I mean, who
it's a different mindset. You got to switch mindsets.
That's right. That's right. Changing from the savings mindset, the savings stage of life, to the retirement mindset, the retirement stage of life. It's a different philosophy. It's a different mentality. And that's what we're talking about. And so many times because of that, because people don't change, people think, well, I have to have money, I'm saving into the S&P 500, and then I also have to have money in cash over here because, the cash is going to save me should the S&P 500 go down. Well, then the problem is you got that money sitting in cash and you're not making anything on that. You're losing purchasing power there. And you say, well, yeah, but I'm hedging my bets on the other side. But you don't have to. That's the whole point. You don't have to if you change your mindset and look at it from a different perspective. And, that's why we're coming to you on Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And we're trying to help you to understand there's a different way of doing things. We've been here before. This may be your first time in our listening audience that you're retiring. Hopefully it is your first and your only time that you're retiring. I mean, there's some people that have to that retire, but then they have to retire from retiring and go back to work at times when volatility comes. But we've been doing this for 30 years and we've seen it. We do it every day. We help people get through that when they listen to the strategies and to the help that we have. And we have a book that we'd like to give you today that will help you with some of the things we're talking about. We're talking today about 5 mistakes that retirees make. The first mistake is not changing their mindset from the savings stage into the retirement stage or the retirement mindset. But this book today that we have is called Smart Retirement. This is a book that will be able to help you to be able to one of the mistakes people make is paying too much in taxes. This is a thing that helps us be able to understand how you can be able to have tax-free income. So we have this book, Smart Retirement, for the next 5 callers at 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to Agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemy in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemy in Colorado.
It was February of 2020, and Melody came to one of our workshops in Colorado that we were educating retirees on some of these things that we're talking to you about today. And when Melody came in, Daniel, she came to one of our workshops, and then she came in to get a second opinion of her finances. And when she did, she said, Andrew, I didn't know that I could take my money out of my 403B and move it into another account and change these things. I'm so glad that I came to your workshop. And that's what I want to do. I want to change my mindset. I want to change it from a savings mentality. Now that I'm not working anymore, I want to change it. And I want to be able to have more of a retirement mentality because I'm in retirement. I'm going to need to have some income now that I'm in retirement to be able to, and I don't want to outlive my income. And this is a great example of not knowing what she didn't know and putting that into practice to change her mindset. I'm Andrew Adjemy.
And I'm Daniel Adjemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 5 mistakes retirees make. And that the first one that we had discussed was switching mindsets from a saving or an accumulation of assets into a pay me, right? A retirement, let my money work for me model. I worked for it. Now it's time to let it pay me so I can have that quality of life I've dreamt about.
Right.
And Melody is a wonderful, wonderful example of that because she didn't have to go through all the heartache
Right.
of the Corona bar shock, right? The Corona market crash.
Right.
Because she was able to switch from that savings model, that accumulation model, to a less volatile income model where her income is far greater than she asked for, right? She said, I want this much money per month. I want this much money per year. She was able to benefit from that Corona crash.
Right. Her timing was impeccable. Yes.
Increase her income and increase the amount of money that she has.
Right.
I love that story.
Yeah, and the thing that's so crazy is if she hadn't come to our workshop, if she hadn't educated herself, she would have just done things, like insanity, right? Doing things the same way, expecting different results. And but what would have happened if she hadn't done that? Well, may have left her, would have left her money where it was, maybe, and then she wouldn't have been any better off after Corona. It would have just come back to where it was, but instead she took advantage of that, and it helped her to be able to make more money and grow her money. Or she would have taken it out and would have actually hurt her because she would have had less money and wouldn't have been in there. Or, and thirdly, she wouldn't have had the income that she needed because of her retiring and everything, be able to give her the money that she needed every month to be able to live on. So, she was smart to be able to educate herself, to be able to make smart decisions. And that's our the second mistake that retirees make, is not educating themselves. They don't know what they don't know. And the egregious thing in my mind is when people don't want to know what they don't know. And I find that to be so much the case. They whatever people get on these tracks, they get blinders on. They're not open to opportunities. They're not open to possibilities. And they're not the ones that are listening to our show today, Daniel. The ones that listen to our show, I'm so glad that if you're listening to us here, I'm glad that you are. Thank you for joining us, because to me, you guys want to know what you don't know. That's why you're listening, right? Otherwise you wouldn't be listening. So, that's very key, because when people know what they don't know, they can expand their knowledge base. They can expand the options and optionality to them to be able to take advantage, particularly from a financial standpoint.
Well, yeah, and the other egregious thing, right, is the way that the media, so like CNBC, they're set up for day traders. They care what stocks do, what markets do from today till Tuesday, right? Your retirement, you're not looking from today to Tuesday. It's completely different. Those are for traders. And you know what else they are? They're entertainers.
Right.
Jim Cramer is an entertainer, right? If you followed every trade he made, you would have underperformed any index, right? But you had a lot of fun trading, and you had a lot of fun watching Jim Cramer scream on TV, right?
Right.
So the other thing is, advisors work for a big box firm that get passed down research. And we saw what happened in 2008, where they were on the opposite sides of the trades that they were telling their investors to get into.
Yeah.
So the problem is, it's difficult to find advice specifically designed for people who are in retirement. And so it's actually harder than people realize to know what they don't know, or to get that education to have those stress-free retirements.
Right. And that, drives me to thinking about that paper that we have that goes along with why, the reason why people are, the number one fear people have in retirement is running out of money, and spending down their principal is one of those things that make you run out of money. And We have a paper that we'd like to give you and our listening audience that goes along with this that helps you understand the dangers of spending on principal and in retirement and what you can do about that. That's what we're trying to educate you on, that there are options. You don't have to spend on your principal. Many people who have the savings mindset also have the savings mindset when it's time to take money out by just withdrawing the money. And that's not what we're talking about at all. We're talking about taking the interest and dividends, living off the interest and dividends rather than living off the principal. And a savings mindset says, I live off the principal. It's insane when you think about it. So we have this piece available to you that by calling 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616, the dangers of spending down principal during retirement. Call now for that. Daniel, this education.
Before you go with the education topic, we have a client, right?
Right.
Who's got the mindset part fixed. He changed his mindset to a retirement mindset, right? Where his assets are actually generating more income, producing more income than he made at work.
Daniel, we don't have just one client doing that. We have many clients doing that. So,
well, okay, I'm thinking of one particular client, but he keeps calling us up to say, I don't have enough money for this, or I don't have enough money for that, right? He got the education he needed, and he's working on the mindset, but he's not quite there where he's a saver. He's a saver. He wants to save, but he doesn't need to save anymore because his assets now are working harder for him than he's working for himself, right?
He can take the profit off of them and keep the money,
and make more money than he's making going to work.
Right.
How cool is that?
Yeah. That is very cool, and that's why we want to tell people and help people, educate them to know what they don't know, because you don't get taught this. Like you're saying, the CNBC and different things, they're preaching a certain language and a certain way of doing things that's not for retirees. And that's the aspect when we're talking about lack of education that retirees have. Is one of the mistakes that they make is that they don't go looking in the right places for the education. They need a specialist. They need somebody that's going to be able to bring the information, the education that they need for their situation to the table. Rather than somebody that is so involved in the accumulation, it's just saving aspect, and the hope of the stock market, the hope of the S&P 500. There is so much more diversification that's available to people, but they don't know about it.
Yeah, exactly, and that is why we started the show, right? That's why you started the company 30 years ago, because you saw there was a lack of education for retirees, and you saw people getting hurt. You participated in the tech bubble, you participated in the great financial crash, right? And so you saw people getting hurt, and you wanted to educate them so they could protect themselves. In that case of the story, protect themselves from herself, right? Because when her 403b crashes down 35% in Corona, a lot of people sold at the bottom.
Yeah,
a lot of people sold, and they didn't get to ride it back up and take all that stuff. Right. So the education to let you know that you're not accumulating anymore. You don't have to worry about that. Let your money become a renewable resource and pay you.
Yeah, and a big key to that is the strategy, Daniel. People, again, they don't know what they don't know, right? So they think, investments. I can put in the S&P 500 mutual fund or a S&P 500 ETF or a NASDAQ ETF or whatever. And it's not about the investments that is key as much as how to use the investments, the strategies behind them. And there are many different kinds of investments out there. And I constantly seeing people, again, don't know what they don't know. And they buy this mutual fund, this mutual fund, this mutual fund, this mutual fund. And they think they're diversified. And they're not, because they own Apple in each one, and the underlining things, right? Or they invest in they put money at this company, they put money at this, big name company, they put this money at this local company, and they think they're diversified there. No, that's not diversification. Diversification is investing in things that will have that will have a benefit should inflation happen, or when inflation happens, things that will have a benefit if the market goes down, things that will have a benefit if the market goes up. Right? This is true diversification that we're talking about here. And, and of course, part of that, well, I see that we're running out of time in this segment. And, for you and our listening audience, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemy, and we're getting ready to take a break here. And you're going to want to make sure that you come back after break because we're going to be talking about another mistake that retirees make with their money, which has to do with getting around to it. And we've got round two it's if you'd like a round to it to give it to you. But anyway, right now, what I'd like to do is give you a book. Today, we're giving away a book, Smart Retirement by Matt Segula. It's an easy read book, about 100 pages or so, be able to help you be able to save money on your taxes in the future, to be able to, when is $1,000 not $1,000? When you have to pay tax on that $1,000. And Matt Segula goes and talk about in his Smart Retirement how you can get $1,000 that is tax-free. If it's tax-free, it's for me. So we'd like to give you this book by calling 800-725-7616. We have a limited supply, 800-725-7616. Call now. We'll be right back after this.
I'm David Scranton, founder of the Retirement Income Store. If you're in or near retirement, are you certain you have the right retirement plan in place? Do you want to help ensure your nest egg will last you all throughout retirement? Take our retirement review quiz and find out in 5 minutes or less if you're doing everything you can to achieve a more successful retirement.
Visit us online at Agemy.com. That's AGEMY.com. Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemy in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemy in Colorado.
I'm thinking of a guy with a 55 Thunderbird that he enjoyed this Thunderbird in earlier days when it had been restored and was in good shape. But over the years, it has fallen apart and become decrepit, so to speak. And he, we'll call him Harry, is interested in, his thought was that he was going to redo it and restore this car. I've known Harry for decades now, and he's had this car, and not yet has he really started on restoring the car. And unfortunately, it becomes more rusty and rusty every day, and is just falling apart and turning into dust as we speak. I'm Andrew Adjemy.
I'm Daniel Adjemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 5 mistakes that retirees make. Very costly mistakes, and that's a pretty interesting story. There's probably many Harrys out there with those cars. It seemed like a good idea at the time, and then never really get around to it.
Yeah,
but,
there you go. Yeah, and that's the third mistake that people make, retirees make, is procrastination, right? So the first thing we spoke about was that the big mistake was people don't change from a saving mindset to a retirement mindset. And one of the reasons for that is because they don't know what they don't know, and they don't get educated. But then when they do get educated, the problem becomes they procrastinate, and they don't do anything with that information. They don't do anything about that. They don't go anywhere. And what people don't know is, one of the things that people don't realize is that you make a decision one way or the other. Either you make it on purpose or you make it by indecision. So you're making a decision. People think, well, I don't want to make that decision. Well, you're making a decision, right? It was Marcus Tullius Cicero said, more is lost by indecision than wrong decision. Indecision is the thief of opportunity. It will steal you blind. And indecision will cause you to run out of money in your retirement.
Yeah, exactly. I know that kind of happened to me too. I have a Mustang and I needed a new bumper, right? So I put it off. And then come to find out, Corona happens, right? And now you can't buy a bumper. You can't even buy it. So I order one, finally find a place to order one, waiting. I think it was 4 months. And then they contacted me and said, we'll never have this bumper. So you can stop waiting. We'll refund you. And now it's like, well, not only is it more money if somebody could produce it, you can't even get it now.
Right.
And so by indecision, by me not going and just ordering that thing, right? I made a decision, and the consequences are it might not ever be available now.
Right. And that's a great story, because in our example in the last segment of Melody, who her timing was impeccable when she, just before Corona, decided, got educated, understood that she needed to change from the saving mindset into the retirement stage and retirement mindset, and made that decision, and we moved forward, and it was actually to her benefit. But how many people were at that exact same workshop that she came to that haven't done anything with their money, anything different? Because indecision, right?
And I bet some of them did do something. You know what they did?
Pulled it out, right?
When the markets were down, they got terrified because they didn't have a plan, right? We've done shows on having a good retirement strategy. They didn't have a plan, so they're going willy-nilly. And then what happened? You get a 35% correction, you sell out, and then the Federal Reserve stepped in and pushed everything back out, and you missed out on that. You missed out.
Right.
You didn't benefit from it, and in fact, you hurt yourself because you didn't stay in.
Right.
Whereas Melody actually benefited from it. She didn't just get back to where she was. She actually benefited from it because she got educated.
Yeah.
She did not procrastinate.
Yeah. And in that, she made the decision to get somebody, a specialist, to be able to help her, that knew what they were doing, to be able to help her with that aspect, to be able to invest that money's properly, use the right strategies to be able to help her and put her in the condition that she'd be in good shape no matter what. But procrastination is a huge detriment to retirement, to all of life, right? And we all do it in different times, different ways, and sometimes it's more significant than other. But when we're talking about people's retirement and you procrastinate, that is not a good thing at all, right? And I'm thinking of talking about procrastination, right? Procrastination is a thing that it's kind of like reactive, right? You're that sort of thing. But then there's the aspect of being proactive, and proactive, you don't have to worry about procrastinating, because you're always going forth into the front and making sure that you're taking advantage of what's available. And Daniel, I'm thinking of that white paper I'd like to give away to our listening audience called Proactive Tax Saving Strategies. I think that will help people to be able to understand how to be able to be proactive, not reactive, not procrastinate, to be able to take steps. And this is a good time to do it right before we're in September, approaching the end of the year. This is a good time to be doing some tax planning for 2021. I think that's a good thing to give away to people. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that will benefit people tremendously. There's a lot of good opportunities you can take advantage with tax savings and being proactive, both in being proactive in switching those mentalities, right? Before you actually need the income, because it compounds and it builds up. So I think that commission report will really benefit people and help them get set up so they can have a good 2022.
Nice. So if you like that, in our listening audience, you're listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew Daniel Adjemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And we'd like to give you away this commission report that's called Proactive Tax Saving Strategies. And you can have that with no obligation by calling 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. And don't procrastinate. Do it now. Okay, 800-725-7616. Now, when we're talking about taxes, Daniel, that brings me to the fourth point, right? The fourth mistake that retirees make. So we're, again, reiterating, the first mistake that retirees make with their money is, number one, that they don't change from the savings mindset or stage into the retirement stage mindset in the proper time. The second thing is a lack of education. People don't know what people don't know. So because of that, then they get into the procrastination mode. And the fourth thing that mistake that people make is paying too much money in taxes. It was one of the Supreme Court judges that in the 60s, I believe it was, said that it is every American's right and responsibility to pay as few taxes as possible legally speaking. We need to take every deduction that we can legally. And that is many times people don't look at that and they think, oh, it's a tax. The thing that gets me is when people do the voluntary tax. You know what that is, right, Daniel?
What's
the
that?
Lottery, right? The voluntary tax, right? Because the lotteries, you're giving the government money and hoping that you're going to get something out of it. But, many times people don't get anything out of it from the most part. But paying too much in taxes, people need to be able to look at their tax situation and assess it. And you know what I find, Daniel, is people don't think about taxes until tax time. And then, what happens at tax time, right? They go to
late. It's too late. You just got to get the taxes done.
Yeah. And then all you can do is damage control. And that's what tax preparers do, right? They just prepare taxes and they're not thinking about, oh, you should be doing this tax strategy, for this year so that you'll be in better shape next tax season or whatever. Have more money withheld from your W. A lot of times that stuff is overseen and just smoothed over because they're so busy just preparing taxes. They don't have time to do the tax planning. And that's why it's so important to do the tax planning. That's one of the reasons why I created Connecticut Sound Tax Group, is to be able to prepare to do tax planning for retirees and pre-retirees, as well as be able to prepare a quality tax return at a reasonable rate. And so I love being able to help people save money on taxes. And how many times we have set people up. I'm thinking of one couple that we are been converting their IRAs into Roth IRAs. And they're actually, at one point, they were paying zero taxes. And then we started paying taxes because we're doing this conversion process. And in another year or two or three, I forget it, somewhere in that vicinity, they're going to go back into not paying any taxes at all, zero taxes. And it's going to be a great position for them to be in. They're going to have all these assets, hundreds of thousands of dollars of assets that are going to be available to them on a tax-free basis. And people don't know what they don't know when it comes to taxes and don't realize that taxes can dig into their assets in a big time fashion.
Yeah, well, if you're going to pay half of your money in taxes by putting it into, say, a traditional IRA, when you need the money, you're going to pay half of it. When your kids inherit it or whoever inherited, you're going to pay half of it in taxes.
All right.
And maybe if you don't have a lot of money, maybe you could do a couple of tricks, and depending on what state you live in, like if you live in Florida or Texas, right, then maybe it's like 25 or 30%. But why would you do that when there are ways? This is what's happening, and I know we're running out of time here, but this is what's happening. The government's printing money, making money worth less and less and less. Where's that money going? That money's going into markets. It's inflating stocks. It's inflating houses. It's inflating all these things, which make the money in your bank have less purchasing power, making the money in your bank worth less. So if you are accumulating and growing that wealth, you're going to owe taxes on it sometime. If you could get it into that Roth like you're talking about, and it doubles or triples or quadruples, it just depends how much money Nancy Pelosi prints, right? Then it comes out tax-free.
Right.
So not only are you benefiting, right? You don't want to benefit from money being devalued, but you need to protect yourself. You need to protect your lifestyle. You need to protect your retirement. So you need to figure that out. But why pay tax on it?
Right.
Right. And that's what you're talking about with these tax strategies.
Exactly. And I see that it's coming time for us to take a break. And if you've just joined us, you listen to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemy, because people don't know what people don't know. And we're talking about taxes. And today we're giving away a book, Smart Retirement, which is a short, easy read book that talks about how you can have tax-free income in retirement if you plan. Whether you're 20 years from retirement, you're 10 years from retirement, or you're in retirement, you can have tax-free money in the future if you do some planning and do some savings in the fashion that Matt Segula says in this book. So you can have that book by calling 800-725-7616. It's called Smart Retirement, 800-725-7616. And we'll be right back after this.
History tells us the market goes up and the market goes down. What would you do if you lost half of your retirement savings? It's time to make the shift to steady, reliable retirement income. And where do you go? The Retirement Income Store. Log on to Agemy.com for your free retirement review. That's AGEMY.com. The Retirement Income Store, where retirees go for income.
Welcome back to Financial Strategies with Andrew Adjemy in Connecticut and Daniel Adjemy in Colorado.
So Jimmy was a man that came kind of from nothing, from the standpoint of he wasn't a sophisticated, highly educated man, but he did quite well during his lifetime, and he ended up leaving his three children about $1.2 million in total. But Jimmy didn't know what he didn't know. And when it came to taxes and legacy planning, he didn't do things in the correct fashion. You see, what happened was that Jimmy wanted to keep the government from getting their hands on the money that he was passing on to his kids. So what he did before he died was all his stocks and investments that had made quite a bit of money, he ended up putting his children's names on those accounts. Each one, he divided it into thirds and gave each child, it was Jimmy's name plus one of the children's name on each one of the accounts. Of course, they were adult children. But when Jimmy passed away, what happened was the amount of money that Jimmy had originally invested in those plans ended up being the basis for which the children received that money. And so when the children actually received the money, they had to pay taxes on 50% of the money that Jimmy gave to them. Jimmy thought he was doing a smart thing and was doing some legacy planning that was going to help him from a tax strategy and legacy strategy. But the problem was Jimmy didn't know what Jimmy didn't know. And he actually cost his children more money in taxes. I'm Andrew Adjemy.
And I'm Daniel Adjemy, and you're listening to Financial Strategies. Today we're talking about 5 mistakes that retirees make and trying to educate the people on how they can avoid these traps and make sure that they are able to enjoy the retirements. That story kind of wraps up almost all 5 of those things into one little section right there. I guess we're done.
Yeah, let's just close up and go home. That's a real interesting thing with Jimmy, because that he thought he was doing the right thing, but when I was meeting with at least one of his children and explaining that to him, it was just a kind of a devastating thing that, but there's no way around it at that point, because he made the decision. So at least he didn't procrastinate. He made a decision, was the wrong decision. But that's where people, when they're doing their tax plan, number one, taxes are important because tax rates are going to be going up. In 2025, they're going to be going up. And we pay a lot of different taxes. There's income taxes, estate taxes, sales tax, all kinds of taxes. And when you're married and one of the spouses die, well, then your tax bracket goes up again because you're going from married filing jointly to single. And so it is very prudent to be able to make and do some tax planning ahead of time to prepare for these things down the road. We're always looking at trying to prepare people for when that second spouse or when the first spouse dies, that the second spouse is going to be able to have either tax-free income or lower taxes at that point best we can. But when we're talking about legacy planning, people doing incorrect legacy planning, that happens so much too, because people put things in the name of their children, like in the case of Jimmy here, that maybe shouldn't be in the name of the children. People don't have the right documents. They don't have a will. Sometimes they die without a will, which causes issues, or they die without a current will that causes issues, or they might need a trust. I mean, so many times I see people getting living trusts or revocable trusts that they don't need, and they spend thousands of dollars in this legacy planning that was incorrect. And again, that's taken from them, that's taken from whoever they're giving the money to, whether it be children, nephews and nieces, or charities, or whatever the case may be, because it's being done incorrectly. And again, people don't know what people don't know. And that's why it's prudent to be able to have a specialist in retirement to be able to help along those lines.
Yeah, and things have changed possibly from when those accounts were set up. There's things like TODs, transfer on deaths, that haven't been around for a long time.
Right.
And what that allows you to do is you continue to own your assets, right? But then it skips probate when you die, and it goes to the people that you want it to go to. And that could be a charity, that could be your kids, that could be your grandkids, that could be your great-great-grandkids. It could be whatever you want. But the point is, it goes exactly where you want it to, and it's not in their name, which means they get cost basis, or they get the value of what you're transferring at date of death, and they don't have to pay tax on all the appreciation you made from those assets. So there's a lot of different things that people could do with those. And when you talk about trust too, some people, right, they have too much money, they want to get it out of their estate so that they don't have to worry about estate taxes. Right. And so there's trusts that they can get set up where they can put money into those trusts for their kids, right?
Right.
And get that money out of the estate.
Yeah.
So they don't have to worry about paying those estate taxes. So there's a ton of different ways that you can get your finances set up so that you can benefit the people you want to benefit, instead of giving the money to the politicians to spend in the way that they think.
Exactly.
Or maybe they don't think, I don't know. But most people think that they could spend their money or do better things with their money. If you want to help charities, then don't say, would you say, well, I want to pay a lot of taxes because this will cover welfare programs? Or would you say, I could do a better job of taking care of people that need help by donating to these charities, or by starting a charitable organization, or by helping one of my kids or grandkids start a charitable organization? It's up to you. Do whatever you want. It's your money.
Right. But that's one of the things I see happen too, Daniel, is that, people will give taxable money to their children and tax-free money, believe it or not, to organizations, which it should be just the other way around. If they give the taxable money to the nonprofit organizations, they're not going to pay tax on it. And then you give your kids the tax-free money so that they don't pay tax on it. So you're cheating the government. No, you're not cheating the government. This is all legal. Okay. I'm not doing it, but you're doing things in a way, if you put things and line things up properly, you can pay there's little or reduce your estate taxation by setting things up like Daniel was talking about, or reduce your income taxation by setting things up differently as well, and doing some Roth conversions, whether you're not retired yet or in retirement. There's all kinds of different aspects that we can look at from that standpoint. There's just so many things that people can do. And, one of the things, we have this commission report we'd like to give you in a listening audience. You're listening to Financial Strategies with Daniel Adjemy, and we're giving away the commission report, Proactive Tax Saving Strategies. We'd love to put that in your hand. You can have that by calling 800-725-7616, 800-725-7616. Daniel, we just have a few minutes left in the show here. And, we've talked about 5 different mistakes that retirees make with their money. Number one is not switching from a savings mindset or savings stage and mentality into a retirement stage mentality. The second one is lack of education and not knowing what they don't know. And so getting educated on what you need to know for retirement. The third mistake is that people procrastinate and don't make the decision in the proper fashion. So they make a decision by indecision. Paying too much taxes is the fourth thing that people do too often that is egregious. And of course, the fifth thing is incorrect legacy planning that has effects upon taxes as well as upon who's getting the money and how the money is being distributed upon the death of the investor and retiree. What else comes to your mind today as we wrap up?
Well, I think all of those things they tie in together really well. We're talking about compounding a lot. And when you get those 5 things working together, the compounding effect, it's not 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 5, right?
Right.
It actually multiplies. It's like multiplying those, and the sum of all 5 of those together equals 10 or 15, right? Instead of 5.
Exactly.
And a story I think that kind of illustrates that is I was out this weekend, and I was in Frisco, and I decided I was going to ride through this trail, go up this mountain through Frisco, and then come down into Breckenridge.
And that's on your mountain bike, right?
That's on my mountain bike, yeah. So I got a new bike, and I'm excited about doing this ride. And the mountain goes like this. It's about 8 miles up and then drops 2 miles down into Breck, okay? So one is long and slow. There's some big steep stuff and a little bit of down stuff, but it's mostly up for 8 miles. And then you drop straight down. And you could do it 2 ways. You could ride up and ride down, and then take the bus back. Okay. Or you can go out and back, so 20 miles, right?
Okay.
So I ride out, and I'm at the 8-mile mark. So I'm just about to drop down the 2 miles into Breckenridge. And I see this guy climbing up the mountain, and he's climbing, and he gets up to me, and he sees me, and I say, "Hey, man, are you okay?" And he says, Yeah, I'm dying here. Is it going to be like this the whole way? And I said, the good news is you got 8 miles of downhill. Now you're going to have a couple ups, but it's pretty much downhill from here. And as we're talking, a guy blows past him, just pedaling like a maniac, going fast, blows past him, doesn't say anything to us, and goes on. So both of them leave. I finish the ride. I turn around. I come back, riding back. A ways later, I pass the second guy. I passed the strong guy, the guy that had no problem biking. And he is just struggling trying to make it up this mountain. And I end up passing him and never catching the first guy, the tired guy. And the difference in that is the mindset that the 2 gentlemen had. One knew what he knew. He knew that whenever he hit those little hills, those little bumps, it was still going to be downhill for 8 miles. The other guy, every time he hit a hill, he said, "Oh man, this is going to be like another 2 miles of uphill," because he knew he was only 2 miles into the ride of a 10-mile ride. And he didn't know what he didn't know, and it cost him the enjoyment of all the downhill because he kept thinking he had to climb more.
He defeated himself in his mind. Is how I see what happened in there. And, we are so glad to be able to come to you today and in our listening audience, you've been listening to Financial Strategies with Andrew and Daniel Adjemy. Thank you, Daniel, for that great example of it's in the mind, and we have to start in the mind with what we're doing to be able to achieve the goals that we have and be able to make sure that we don't run out of money, but we have all the money that we need for the rest of our life. We are giving away a book, Smart Retirement, that you can have by calling 800-725-7616. And we will look forward to talk with you next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And we wish you we wish you a stress-free retirement.